Imagine a biotech company announces their new cancer drug is just as powerful as the billion-dollar competition, but significantly safer to take. You would expect a rally. Instead, the stock drops 40% in a single day. That is exactly what happened to ORIC Pharmaceuticals today. The catalyst for the crash was a single headline. ORIC selected a 400 milligram dose for its upcoming phase 3 trial, entirely scrapping the higher 600 milligram dose. For momentum traders and retail investors, the logic was simple and immediate. A lower dose means a weaker drug. If they have to lower the dose, the drug must be failing. They panicked and they sold. But if you look closely at the trading tape, those dumped shares didn't disappear. Millions of them were absorbed in massive block trades right at the $7.40 mark. Forensic investors were waiting at the floor, executing an institutional sponge strategy. To navigate this kind of volatility, you have to answer one question. Is this 40% drop a terminal falling knife, or did the market completely misread a strategic pivot, creating a massive entry point opportunity? What we are looking at is a severe translation error between the slow reality of a clinical trial and the instant reaction of the 24-hour news cycle. ORIC's leadership faced a strict binary choice. They could push forward with a maximum power 600 milligram dose to satisfy the press releases, or they could optimize down to 400 milligrams to actually satisfy the patients taking the medication. Biotech investors are historically conditioned to believe that fighting severe late-stage diseases requires pushing human biology to the absolute limit. The assumption is that maximum tolerated dosage equals maximum results. There is a counterintuitive reality in oncology. A drug that a patient can actually tolerate taking every day will easily outperform a maximum strength drug that makes them so sick they are forced to quit the trial. We call this the safety moat. ORIC prioritized long-term patient safety data over short-term public relations. They knew the nuance of dose optimization would be completely lost in a morning press release. Buying in at $7.40 is only a trap if that lower dose actually sacrifices cancer-killing power. If the efficacy remains intact, the market has made a profound miscalculation. To see if that power is still there, we have to look at the exact clinical data ORIC used to make their decision. They ran an exposure-response analysis across 113 patients. This line graph charts the drug's efficacy against its dosage. You can see two distinct plot points at 400 milligrams and 600 milligrams. They share the exact same high elevation on the efficacy axis, connected by a completely flat line. The cancer-killing power does not drop at the lower dose. But look what happens when we factor in the safety data. This second line represents severe side effects. It starts low at 400 milligrams, but the moment you push toward that 600 milligram marker, toxicity spikes dramatically. The clinical sweet spot is right here at 400 milligrams. At this dose, grade 3 side effects drop to a highly manageable 6 to 11%, leaving a wide gap between high efficacy and low toxicity. If ORIC had moved forward with the 600 milligram dose, they would have introduced a massive toxic liability into their upcoming phase 3 trial. Patients would have experienced severe side effects, dropped out of the study, and ruined the data. Discontinuing the higher dose surgically removes the exact liability that causes late-stage biotech trials to fail, while keeping the stronger cancer-killing power completely intact. External regulatory forces drove this decision as well, specifically a strict mandate from the FDA known as Project Optimus. Project Optimus legally forces oncology companies to find the lowest effective dose for their treatments, actively discouraging the old model of defaulting to the maximum tolerated dose. Retail panic assumed this dose adjustment meant a massive delay. It doesn't. ORIC's Himalayas-1 phase 3 trial is entirely on track, expected to initiate in the first half of 2026. Front-loading this optimization work now actually accelerates the timeline. Companies rushing toxic drugs receive complete response letters, forcing them to start over. ORIC bypasses that trap entirely. The ultimate test of this cleaner drug profile is how it performs in the real world against its primary big pharma competitor, Pfizer's billion-dollar alternative, misunderstanding. This matrix compares the core efficacy of the two drugs side by side. Looking at ORIC's 400 milligram dose on the left, we see a highly impressive 84% radiographic survival rate at the 5-month mark. That survival rate becomes even more significant when you factor in the patient population. ORIC achieved these numbers in patients who are much sicker and more heavily pretreated than the patients in Pfizer's trial. Now look at the safety profiles. Nearly half of the patients on Pfizer's drug suffer from severe grade 3 blood and gastrointestinal issues. ORIC's adverse events are almost entirely grade 1, meaning they are mild and manageable. ORIC is perfectly fine losing a 24-hour PR battle. They are intentionally building the best-in-disease profile required to win the actual multi-billion-dollar commercial market. We have proof that the market's initial reaction to dose reductions is often entirely wrong. We saw this exact scenario play out with Relay Therapeutics in late 2024. Relay executed the same safety pivot to optimize their dose. The market immediately panicked, assumed the drug was too weak, and aggressively dumped the stock. As the clinical data matured, it proved that Relay's cleaner safety profile allowed patients to stay on the medication for over 11 months. That drove better long-term survival, and the stock eventually recovered, pushing past its previous highs. Connect that timeline back to ORIC's current $7.40 floor. The company is sitting on $390 million in cash. At this stock price, the market is valuing ORIC's entire Phase 3 pipeline at almost zero. The institutional vaults absorbing shares today understand this historical rubber band effect. They are buying a discounted asset before the market realizes its error. This investment decision rests on a trade-off. If you react to headlines, you land in the bottom left quadrant, locking in severe losses. The forensic investor operates in the top right quadrant, waiting for Phase 3 but gaining outsized returns on verified data. If your strategy requires immediate momentum and you panic at red headlines, this specific biotech profile is highly toxic to your portfolio. For those willing to trade time for fundamentals, the clinical data is clear. ORIC's dose reduction provides the precise blueprint required to build a market-dominating drug.